Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 50. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys could be here with us on this Monday, Steelers Nation, last day of November. And for, I believe, the 73rd episode in a row, Dave, we're talking Steelers-Ravens. And we don't know if this game is going to get played. This recording happening Monday morning, so we'll see where the things take us the next 24 hours. I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to end. I don't know where the NFL head is at right now, as the Steelers have had a couple of positive COVID cases and the Ravens outbreak continues in Baltimore. Now over 20 players placed on reserve COVID list, many of those reported to be positive cases, not just close contact. So we are still, as we have been since last week, basically in wait and see mode about tomorrow's game.
Yeah, 50, episode 50. Feels like that's how many days it's been since we've been previewing this game. It's like a Groundhog Day,
It is.
You know? You wake up, you get ready for the game, and then you wake back up and you get ready for the game, and then there's some new news on top of it, obviously. Yeah, this is, it's frustrating. I mean, you think if it's frustrating for someone like us, imagine what it's like for these teams and the NFL as well. You know, makes you wonder if they truly are going to get in a place where the complete rash of or string of positive tests have ended. I know that's the goal there. And look, like I said on the show the other day, it's all about the money. Do I know for sure whether or not this game is going to take place on Tuesday? No, but it sure makes it seem like they're going to do everything under the sun possible. And look, I mean, we see what happened in the game with Denver the other day on Sunday, with them not having a quarterback and still having to play. So competitive, they don't give a damn about the competitive balance or imbalance or anything along those lines. They just want the games played, and we'll see. So I don't know where you want to start. Obviously, the Ravens COVID list has grown quite extensively since we did our show on Friday, and obviously the Steelers have names on the list now as well.
Yeah, let's start with the most recent piece of news, and then we'll kind of work our way backwards over the last couple of days. So the most recent piece is a relatively small one, but may give some sort of indication of where the NFL's head is at. This is from Adam Schefter early on Monday morning, saying the NFL canceled the Ravens practice scheduled for Monday morning per league source. Ravens last practice the Saturday before the Titans game, currently still scheduled to play in Pittsburgh tomorrow night. Don't know when the Ravens plan to travel. So the fact that the NFL isn't letting Baltimore practice, well, it is not the say-all, end-all, of course, and I'm sure the league wants the Ravens to use every precautionary option possible. The fact that they aren't allowed to practice at all on today with the game tomorrow is not a tremendously positive sign for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, not especially look, their positive tests have not stopped, I don't think, in any of these days, right? So, we're sitting here. I mean, we've become a real-time Twitter kind of narration, if you will, because we're literally sitting here watching Twitter and waiting, really waiting for the next shoe to drop, if you will. With them canceling these tests, it makes you wonder what's next. Is anybody going to test positive for them this morning?
Right, and let's before we get into Baltimore, and again, you're right, Dave, continued positive COVID tests. I guess a small piece of good news is it's been fewer, apparently, tests. Before they had 6 players go on COVID. They had 3 players go on COVID. Now it's been basically 1, maybe 2 a day. But Pittsburgh has had their own COVID issues as well, not nearly to the extent of Baltimore. I think it's safe to say there's not been an outbreak in Pittsburgh the way there has been in Baltimore. But Pittsburgh has had 4 players added to their reserve COVID list over the last week. They are defensive lineman Stephon Tuitt and Isaiah Buggs, offensive tackle Gerald Hawkins, and running back James Conner, reportedly, according to NFL Network, tested positive for COVID-19. So it is not believed that any of those guys will play in tomorrow's presumed game against Baltimore. Conner, Tuitt, obviously the most significant names on that list.
Yeah, absolutely. And out of nowhere, did you get the coaches?
No, I have not. Yeah, I just focus on the players, but also in terms of coaches. Special teams coordinator Danny Smith, according to the Post-Gazette, reportedly tested positive for COVID-19, along with quarterbacks coach Matt Canada. And so those guys will not coach tomorrow's game. That's been announced by the team.
Right. All right. So where do you want to start on that? Obviously, Bugs might have probably been inactive anyway, right? Well, it seemed like he might have been headed that way. Tuitt's a big loss, without a doubt. You obviously would like to have him in there. James Conner. Some people are kind of probably shrugging their shoulders about that one. One thing for what Mike Tomlin had to say after practice on Sunday was, obviously has all the full confidence that Benny Snell can be the feature guy. That seems to be that. The way that's going. Who was the? I'm already losing track of
Gerald
Hawkins. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's your an extra offensive lineman for you as well too. And we don't know what we haven't heard anything on Kevin Dotson in a while, who's also still on the COVID list. Is he going to get activated today? One wouldn't think that would happen, and even if he did, you would think they would want a certain amount of practices out of him before dressing him anyway. So based on the numbers of offensive linemen that the Steelers have on their 53-man roster, and assuming that Hawkins could Hawkins end up being a close contact guy again? And if so, is there enough time for him to come off? And do we know for sure who the close contact? I think there's a lot of speculation that Tuitt was the positive and James Conner was a positive when it comes to players, but maybe the rest of them might have been close contact people. But we have no way to kind of verify that, and we'll just have to wait and see what if any of these guys are removed from the COVID list today, I guess.
Right. The report was that Connor did test positive. I didn't hear anything on the other three guys talking about Tuitt, Bugs, or Hawkins. I believe Missy Matthews of Steelers.com framed it in a way that didn't make it seem like that those three, again, Tuitt, Bugs, Hawkins, were going to be available for tomorrow's game. But I don't know for sure if they're close contact, or if they're COVID positive, or what their exact situation is. And yeah, Kevin Dotson's been on the COVID list since November 14th, so over 2 weeks now. And even if he were to get activated, this guy hasn't practiced in, again, over 2 weeks. And so he may dress, but you would really be hesitant to play him at all tomorrow.
Right, and we're going to get a swift lesson in these next 24 hours, possibly, assuming the game goes off, on the whole close contact and asymptomatic and symptomatic and everything along those lines. Have we seen a player yet go on that's tested positive that's come off, not have to sit on the list all 10 days or whatnot? I don't.
Not that I'm aware of. I know there is a technical. I wouldn't call it technicality, but there is a way for a player who tests positive for COVID, so not just close contact, but is asymptomatic, to return in basically about a week if they get 2 negative tests within 2 24-hour periods and they show no other symptoms and they feel fine. But the odds of that happening seem pretty unlikely. It feels like most of these guys who do test positive for COVID, even if they are asymptomatic, miss a game and are out an average of 10 to 12 days.
Right. And but I can't remember. Obviously, I don't follow all the teams' transaction wire when it comes to the COVID list as close as the Steelers, or who the Steelers are playing in a given week. But I don't remember a player testing positive and then turning around within the next 3 or 4 days. In other words, before the 10 days is up,
right,
and making it back to the roster. And obviously, I don't think you can recall one as well.
Right. I think every player that's tested positive or reported to test positive has at least missed one game, unless it was a bye week scenario, maybe. But other than that, but I think that applies probably more to the Baltimore's growing list of guys. And could some of those guys placed last Monday come back potentially? But I still think those odds are pretty low.
All right, and obviously, if they're close contact, Brandon Williams, we'll find out, I'm sure, something on him maybe today when it comes to him. And has there been enough time for a guy like Hawkins or Bugs, to clear this thing if they were close contact?
Right, right. Possibly. We just don't know enough about their information right now. But assuming all those guys are out, again, yeah, Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland will be the two main running backs. Will Wendell Smallwood get elevated? That's probable at this point. I think where you really will miss Connor against Baltimore in particular is in the pass protection element, because no team blitzes more than the Baltimore Ravens. And you can bet they're going to be aggressive and attacking, knowing that they got to create a splash play defensively to try to gain an edge in this one with how depleted their roster is with COVID reserve guys right now. So Snell and McFarland obviously are not where Connor's at in pass pro, and so that's probably my biggest concern for not having James Conner in this game.
Yeah, and look, Snell hasn't had the kind of reps, obviously, that Connor has either. You really still the bulk of what we have now. Snell has had some nice pass pro reps,
Sure.
but he just hasn't faced a lot of it so far. So, more than anything, I think you're less concerned about maybe the effort than it is the knowing
Right.
the recognition of where it's coming from, kind of thing, and making sure you get to that aspect of it. Heck, for all we know, maybe this, maybe another sign that the Steelers might just try to go 0-1 personnel, try to spread them out and all and try to eliminate. Did you see the Tony Romo interview with and really I'm not a big Bill, what's his name, from the Ringer, Bill Simmons, or
Bill Simmons.
Yeah,
I did not see it. So
his most recent podcast, he had Tony Romo in there, and I've become a huge Tony Romo fan since he's retired and got into broadcasting. It really was a great interview and all, and talking about how quarterbacks and the whole recognition thing and how defenses are so good at disguising that sometimes it's better to just kind of spread them out, because that way defenses have to declare yada yada. A lot of stuff that you wrote and talk about over the course of the last month as well too there. So maybe that's the way they kind of lean in that one. But even so, another thing that we've talked about with Snell throughout this thing is, boy, how nice would it be to see him actually get carries early, because and it's not a large sample size, but he seems to be a guy that as the game goes on and he gets into that 10th, 11th, 12th carry, that's when you start to see things happen with him. So can the Steelers potentially get in a place, and really be hard to judge based on what the Ravens might look like they might potentially have or not have as far as the defensive line goes in this game. But, it'd be interesting to see him get a large swath of carries, if you would, in this game. And I think Wendell Smallwood still, and I know the preseason or the camp reports weren't great on him, especially when it came to pass protection and things along those lines. But from what I saw as a whole, he looks fine as far as a pass protector goes. Probably not as accomplished obviously as a guy like Anthony McFarland is, but we do know for a fact that Jalen Samuels has been ruled out for this game. That came out on the final injury report, I believe, on Saturday. There, and then look, I think you almost have to have Samuels come up.
Smallwood, yeah. Smallwood's going to have to get elevated for sure. Yeah, because the biggest component you're missing without Connor is that protecting and receiving back. Snell, McFarland, not in their wheelhouse. Smallwood's probably a little bit more comfortable with that, and so I really expect Wendell Smallwood to get elevated to the roster either today or tomorrow before the game, obviously.
Right, and I bet he's excited. I mean, look, this is a guy that I think you can do some things with out of the backfield as well, too. A guy that put up a few explosive plays, throughout his career so far. So, I mean, he's worked hard. It'd be interesting to see, and he can play a little bit of special teams for you as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think it's a slam dunk, barring any more positive tests or anything along those lines, that he gets elevated. Now the question is, how many snaps can you get him on the field for?
Right, exactly. With Hawkins, obviously you're missing potential 6 offensive linemen. You're missing your presumed backup tackle at both spots, and you're missing another lineman needed to dress to get to the extra 48 active on game day. So they will certainly have to elevate somebody. My guess is Anthony Coyle, the offensive tackle, just to get at least another guy dressed. And who will be the 6 offensive linemen, if there will be one at all? Could it be a Derwin Gray? We'll have to find out.
Yeah, once again, we don't think Dotson's going to come off, and we're going to guess that Hawkins isn't going to be cleared as a close contact guy. So yeah, that's another one that you're almost forced to do, especially if you want to dress the max amount of players that you can, being 48. So that's another one that we think is going to take place here.
Yeah, so who do you think gets the call up? You have a couple of options. It's not just Anthony Coyle. There's Coyle, Brandon Walton, Judon Jones is still here. He had that domestic issue, and nothing ever really came after that, after the arrest that he had. So I don't know who the guy would be. My guess is Coyle, but that's just a guess.
I ain't got a clue. I mean, both of these. I mean, all these guys are obviously inexperienced. So who's been on the roster the longest? Coyle?
I think Coyle and Jones were both signed as features guys. Walton came in mid-season.
Right. Now Coyle, I believe there was some photos more left tackle capable. Not that would play into it any. I believe there was some camp photos with him at left tackle in that regard. So I mean, we have no idea.
Right. And hopefully it's moot. But I think the more relevant question is who could potentially be the 6 offensive linemen in some heavier sets. And I would probably go with Derwin Gray, tackle background, bigger guy, decent run blocker, probably your best option.
Fair enough. And are we going to see any? Let's see. I guess you could have room for 2 more technically, right? As COVID replacements, defensive linemen. Do you have any defensive linemen or any other bodies that you would want promoted up?
Sure. You have bodies. You have Calvin Taylor and DeMarcus Christmas, and one or both of those guys theoretically could come up. With Tuitt, obviously that's probably the biggest loss from a talent value standpoint. And Chris Wormley, I would assume, is going to get the nod in base at left defensive end, and then they'll rotate a combination of Wormley, Alualu, maybe a little bit of Carlos Davis, Henry Mondo to replace him in nickel. But certainly you felt the effect of not having Alualu in that first game against Baltimore, how much that hurt your defensive line. Will Tuitt have the same impact? Hopefully not, but that is going to be a concern.
Do you elevate even because technically they have enough to dress minus Tuitt, what they normally dress, meaning five defensive linemen, right?
Right.
So do you elevate just in an emergency situation, and then that player winds up possibly being inactive? Or do you elevate with the idea? Because look, here's my angle now. I think I found a way to get Kevin Rader on the field, or at least dressed.
Right. By how so? By not elevating those guys, or
well, possibly because still you're going to dress the 5, but obviously if you dressed if you elevated and dressed another one that way, then that would take obviously away from the chances of Radar. Raider.
Would you imagine they're just going to elevate guys because these are COVID replacements? So it's a freebie to elevate them.
That's quite possible too. If they're able to be termed that way, you don't lose a strike against them for being elevated. Then you want to make sure you have the maximum available should someone get sick pregame, someone trip going down the stairs or what have you. But the way this week's going, who knows? At least you have somebody that's on the active inactive roster that 90 minutes before kickoff, you could be active for the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I imagine they will make those moves because there's no downside to really doing so as COVID replacements, or could even a different position come up. And Antoine Brooks, for example, why not activate him? Because he's someone that probably gives you more value on special teams and just another chess piece defensively if you do dress him. So that's someone that isn't coming up as a 1-to-1 replacement for someone on COVID, but just a talented guy that might help your roster in a different way.
Yeah, that's totally possible as well too. One thing's for certain is I think we will know our answers to this by about 4:00 this afternoon.
Okay, so you're expecting that stuff to come in today, not tomorrow? Because I wasn't sure for sure if they could come in even tomorrow.
I think look, technically the NFL week starts on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So
technically a lot of things.
Right. But I'm just saying, and normally the Steelers do their, I think teams up until game day can. I just think because of this, the Steelers' history with these moves, and then with the week laid out, or with the game day laid out the way it is, I would expect them to happen by 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay, fair enough. We'll keep an eye on it. Definitely write about it whenever those moves do happen. And for the coaching staff, don't know if there's been any official replacement for Matt Canada. Maybe Matt Sims, who would kind of work with the quarterbacks as an assistant the last couple of years. Blaine Stewart, though, another assistant coach, worked with some receivers, quarterbacks. He will take over Danny Smith's role for special teams coordinator during this Tuesday's game and any future games that Danny Smith may miss.
Right. So, I think we're about now. Now we get to shift over to the Ravens side of things.
Real quick, one last note with James Conner. I'm so glad that Dr. Melanie Friedlander had written this article about James Conner, because obviously the first thing that came to mind for myself, and I'm sure many fans when they heard the news that Conner tested positive for COVID, was his cancer background, cancer survivor, and how this diagnosis could impact that. But Dr. Mel had a great article, which you guys can find on Steelers Depot, saying that basically she doesn't believe Connor's had any additional risk for any complications or any just higher risk factors for contracting COVID-19 because of the cancer background. So should be okay there. Connor reportedly feeling fine, no symptoms. He tweeted that he'll be back soon. So that's all, of course, very good news.
Yeah, tweeted or Instagrammed a picture out with him and his guinea pig. He looks to be in good spirits and fine. I think Bugs is a constant on Instagram as well too there. So I just think it's just going through the motions here and the quarantine and all like that. What do you think about the overall the decision of the postponement? Now that we're here, and the idea now that the Washington football team has the extra time to prepare. They didn't push. They obviously had. I guess the networks decided that we'd much rather have Dallas versus Baltimore, on next Monday night, and those two teams were obviously supposed to play Thursday this week. Mm-hmm. Do you have any issue at all with the way the league has handled this?
Not as much as probably most Steeler fans. Obviously, these are extremely difficult situations. I mean, it does get to a broader question of, and I wrote in the article yesterday about it, just how much longer can the NFL kind of just keep trudging through this without doing anything significantly different, considering how bad things have gotten, where the 49ers can't play in California anymore, basically. The Broncos are starting a wide receiver at quarterback. The Steelers-Ravens mess that's going on right now. I mean, and it feels like it's not going to get any better, but that's a much longer discussion that I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole of just the overall way the NFL is going and if they have to change course a little bit.
And Bill Cowher came out on a pregame show on CBS yesterday, calling for the NFL to do bubbles, and you and I have kind of approached that topic a few times. Obviously, look, the bad thing about it is how are you going to get the teams out of the playoff picture to conform the way they probably need to conform, and on top of that, are you still always going to be in a situation where we talked about the one guy, and in Ravens' case, strength and conditioning coach Steve Saunders evidently was that one guy. Even if you bubbled up the entire league right now, are you still going to have that one guy? Right. Sneak out or someone sneak their girl, all the nonsense that happens with human beings and decision making in general, So, and plus, obviously, you have more personnel involved, or not only players but personnel, practice squad, and I mean, you're talking about a huge financial. I mean, obviously they can afford it, but that money's got to come from somewhere. Profits are already down. I'm sure push come to shove, the NFL doesn't want to have to do that, but maybe that's something that you really examine though with teams once they clinch a playoff spot or something.
Yeah, I think once the playoffs begin, that's something you probably try to do just because it's fewer teams to control. But logistically right now, obviously it'd be difficult to do as much as there are upsides to having some sort of bubble-like environment.
All right, you got about 30 minutes to go over the Ravens list here.
Yeah, it feels like we're going to need more than that. The Baltimore Ravens, their COVID list continues to grow. And, of course, we hope everybody who has tested positive has a quick and speedy recovery. Again, that list is up to – it's over 20. I think it's 23 right now. I'm looking at the Jamison Hensley's tweet from last night listing all their COVID names. And, again, this list has grown since we last talked on Friday. They've now added wide receiver Willie Snead, tight end Mark Andrews. I'm not even sure who else has been added that we haven't talked about already.
Matthew, let me read down the names.
Yeah,
I've got a fairly updated list here as of this morning. Linebacker Matthew Judon, who's obviously a starter. Mark Andrews, their leading pass catcher, if you will. Tight end. Willie Snead. Khalil Dorsey, cornerback. Jalen Ferguson, a linebacker. DJ Fluker, he's been playing tackle for him, hasn't he?
Right. Yeah, to replace Stanley. Yeah.
Right. Left tackle. Broderick Washington, a defensive tackle. Tavon Young, cornerback. Will Holden, a guard. Morgan Cox, long snapper. Who's going to long snap for him? Did they have another one on?
They do have a guy on the practice squad.
Okay, practice squad there. Okay, Lamar Jackson, Justin Matabuke, Patrick Ricard, fullback. Jihad Ward, defensive end. Calais Campbell, defensive end. Patrick McCarry, who's obviously had become the starting center. Matt Skura, who's the backup center. Pernell McPhee, linebacker. J.K. Dobbins, running back. Mark Ingram, running back. Brandon Williams, defensive tackle. And guys that were on there on the list prior to this past week. McSorley, Inman Marshall, Tyus Bowser, linebacker, and these all go back into earlier dates now as well. To really McSorley and Inman Marshall, I think Marshall's got an injury. I think McSorley could potentially maybe come off any time now. So, yeah, that's brutal, man. I mean, I don't see how you can expect them to be competitive at all. Now they still have their secondary intact, and I think that's one of the things for the most part that you and I kind of focused on in kind of previewing that game is if there's anything whatsoever that kind of helps the Ravens in this instance is that they still have pretty much that secondary intact.
Yeah, that's about the only part of the roster that's not been touched by COVID. And again, we believe that a large chunk of the names you rattled off are positive COVID cases, not just close contacts. There are a couple in that latter camp reportedly, including Brandon Williams, might be the most notable name there. But we expect the Ravens to not have a good portion of the names you just rattled off, including quarterback Lamar Jackson. So that would obviously deplete their roster. And yeah, it just kind of makes it hard where they're going to have to call up basically their entire practice squad, try to piece this thing together, and I don't know what you do if you're Baltimore right now.
Yeah, I mean, their defensive line is decimated. I mean, we're just going to have to sit and wait and see how many of these guys maybe wind up were not positive tests and maybe close contacts that maybe have had enough time to come off. But I mean, decimated really now on both sides of the ball. I don't know if you can really choose one over the other because not having a guy like Snead and not having a guy like Andrews and they had lost their other tight end to injury recently.
Matthew asked the question, do they have any tight ends left? Because Boyle's gone with injury. Andrews is out with COVID. Do they have anyone else on the roster?
Yeah, that's a good question, and obviously their fullback is down too, right?
Right. Yeah, Ricard is out. The only one on their currently listed is Andrews. I see on the reserved injured on the practice squad.
Luke Wilson.
Right, but he has an illness too, right?
Does he?
That's what Matthew said at least. They have a couple guys on the practice squad: Sean Culkin, Eric Tomlinson, a big blocking tight end. He's been in the league for a couple of years. Yeah.
Well, Luke Wilson, was he just on the injury report, illness, or what?
I just saw Matthew say it. I'd have to check, but there was something going on with Luke
he's
Wilson
not.
as well.
He wasn't on the COVID list.
Right. Right.
Not that he means that he can't be on there by now. Sean Culkin's on the practice squad. Eric Tomlinson.
Right. Who's played in the NFL. He's a blocking type. Yeah, this is from the November 28th. The last estimated practice report from Baltimore had Luke Wilson as a DNP because of an illness. Now, again, this is an estimation of a practice report, but Wilson was on it.
Right. Maybe he just had the flu or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It's hard to speculate for sure here. And who's going to play? Who are their tackles going to be right now? And here's the other thing. Do they even have is Jake Rogers going to clear enough? Has enough time because they claimed Jake Rogers off waivers.
Mm-hmm. Right, could he get cleared in time? I don't know. Maybe Orlando Brown Jr. is still there at left tackle because remember when Stanley went down, they flipped Brown Jr. from right to left tackle. Fluker then stepped in at right tackle. Fluker is unlikely to play in this one, so who will start at right tackle is an excellent question. I do not know the answer to.
I mean, it could very well end up being Jake Rogers, but we're off into speculation now.
Former Steeler Jake
yeah,
Rogers.
Former Steeler Jake Rogers. I mean, if not him, I think one of their guards would have to kick out. And I mean, could it be former Steeler R.J. Prince, or could it be there was another one that they've been talking about that's been ultra? Who's the other offensive lineman that's ultra versatile for him that even I think played a little bit of tackle for him this season?
Tyree Phillips.
Yeah, I think it was Phillips, wasn't it?
Okay. Well, Phillips played left tackle at Mississippi State and playing right guard this year. I don't know if he's got a right tackle background, but they don't have a lot of choices at this point.
So once again, you have Dupree and. I mean, what's been going up against furniture movers most of the season? You know, it seems like. Mm-hmm. So it looks like that's going to happen again. So anyway, we'll just leave it that we'll find out what happens on the transaction wire obviously later today when it comes to the Ravens, start getting a better idea of who they will they even be able to have a 53-man roster, at least 48? Will they have enough offensive linemen to allow them to dress 48?
Right. I think they will, but just barely, and a lot of guys just getting plugged in and hoping for the best. So it is really unprecedented territory right now what's happening in Baltimore.
Right.
And kudos to the Steelers. Again, I'm not trying to assign blame game too much here, but obviously Pittsburgh's had COVID cases, but it seems like they were following protocols and not allowing this thing to become an outbreak the way it did in Tennessee, the way it did in Baltimore. So
careful with that.
Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't jinx myself. But things look to be all clear. Mike Tomlinson yesterday, the Saturday batch of results did not result in any new positive cases, so we're not seeing as of right now at least any surge, at least this week, in COVID cases, which is obviously good news
so far. And you would think, they did get back to practice, though. The Steelers did on Sunday in some way, shape, or form. And you would think today they're doing some sort of walkthrough, right? Mm-hmm. I guess if you're gonna be a silver lining type person, or glass half full person, which I obviously am most of the time, when it comes to this stuff, is the Steelers sort of kind of got a mini buy out of this, right?
Yeah, Cam Hayward said it was good to get some rest. The players had, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off, so that was 3 days away. Got to be home for Thanksgiving, at least. So, yeah, I mean, that they got rest. And from a Steelers injury report standpoint, the only guys that were really on the report were Jalen Samuels, who's not going to play, but Joe Hayden was listed as questionable with that knee injury, but I think Hayden's probably going to play given the extra rest that he now has.
And then, additionally, a game off for Tuitt to get a little bit of rest. Probably not an awful thing. And James Conner could probably use a little bit of rest as well. Not that you're asking to get it via contracting COVID, but, if you're trying to look kind of long-term and kind of managing health-wise, and I guess at this point you obviously kind of hope maybe the Steelers can get a hold of this game firmly at some point again in the fourth quarter and maybe get a few guys out of this game on top of it there. So on the downside, you tell me what's the weather looking like for Tuesday night? Looks like snow, right? 60% or so?
Yeah, looking like snow. Let me pull up my weather app here for Tuesday. 80% chance of snow. Doesn't really give a whole lot of specifics, but it looks like it's going to snow all day long with wind, 15-mile-an-hour winds as well. So it's going to be a snowy, wintry game, which probably sums up this whole week pretty well.
And probably more of an equalizer for the Ravens than anything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to come out, want to run the football with Gus Edwards, who, is a talented guy, ran for, 130-something yards in Week 17 last year, 80 yards in the first matchup in Week 6 this year against Pittsburgh, and RG3. So, yeah, probably a run-heavy kind of game, I would say, favors Baltimore.
All right, so what you're telling me is this is the 11th trap game in a row.
Yeah, this is just crazy. This is just a wild times. And again, Denver. Did you watch any of the Broncos game yesterday? And
yes, for as much as I could tolerate to it. Just which wasn't long. With that, that poor kid. I mean, A for effort, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what could you do to help him out other than already having the veer installed?
Yeah, get Tubby Raymond. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and again, for the
Have you
Steelers,
ever watched? You've watched We Are Marshall, right?
yeah, I actually watched that in the movie theater. It's like one of the 5
Oh,
movies I've
thank
ever seen in a
goodness.
movie theater before. It's a good movie.
You haven't watched many movies in the movie theater in your life? Is that
No,
true?
because I don't want to spend $30 to go watch, Die Hard 5.
Really, you just never have been a not even Blockbuster. I mean, a summer smash, so you literally have not watched but about 5 movies in theaters.
Well, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not by much. Obviously, no one's been in a movie theater for months. But yeah, the last movie I saw in the movie theater, it has been a couple of years.
Wow. Okay.
What was the last movie you saw in theaters?
Oh, I know we went and saw the Bohemian Rhapsody, and I think we went and saw the Elton John movie. Trying to think if there was anything since
So
then.
that was the start of this year, or was that late last year?
Oh man, that's been over a year ago, I think.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we haven't been since any of the pandemic,
Sure.
so it would have been, if we went and saw anything, it would have been probably last summer at some point.
All right.
But I can't. That goes to show you how impressed I was with the movie. I can't remember the movie. You know?
Yeah, not exactly a 5-star review there. Anyway,
The good thing here is shout out to my South Point Casino here. They have a theater in there, a nice state of the art movie theater inside there. And it's never busy at all. I mean, even pre-COVID, any of the blockbusters, I mean, you walk up in there and you basically buy a ticket and sit anywhere you want in there. So other than that, I don't like crowds at all. I can't tolerate them. So, I mean, if it was a blockbuster and I knew there was going to be a crowd there, we obviously wouldn't go. But if you're looking for a place to stay when you come to Vegas, South Point.
There you go. Yeah, so for Pittsburgh, obviously their roster missing a couple of pieces, but it pales in comparison to what's happening in Baltimore right now. So the Steelers have the better roster. They're, of course, in the better situation. They're practicing. I mean, now Baltimore – when was the last time Baltimore practiced? Last Monday?
Well, wasn't it a week ago Tuesday that they were kind of half walkthrough or something that they got sent? I don't know if we still had the full details on that there, but Monday or Tuesday. I mean, when's the last time they had a full practice? Was probably way before their game against the Titans, right? So
right. So now you start to wonder about some conditioning stuff as well, just basic level readiness, as opposed to just having guys available as well.
Right, and obviously a huge advantage for the Steelers at this point. But you turn the football, games can turn on a dime. But back to I guess you're asking about the Denver game. I mean, how messed up was that? I mean, the kid threw 9 passes or whatnot, 8 passes and completed 1.
Right.
And they obviously tried to run the football, but I mean, you know what the opposition is going to do? They're going to just stack the box in those situations anyway, and make it damn near impossible. Make you try to throw for the most part out of that. So makes you kind of wonder the whole fourth quarterback keeping them sequestered kind of thing.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin was asked about that, not in Denver's situation specifically, but the question was obviously implying that, and Tomlin said, we take all the precautions to make sure we're not in that situation. I do have an article this morning on Steelers Depot that entertains a question I hope never has to actually be asked about who would a Steelers emergency quarterback be if all their actual quarterbacks could not play. My best option would be Deontay Johnson, as kind of a wildcat guy who played some quarterback in high school. There's also Zach Gentry, Cody White, receiver on the practice squad, Deion Kane. Even Joe Hayden is still 4th all-time in Maryland history in passing yards and 3rd all-time with 80 touchdowns he threw at Friendly High School in Maryland. So quarterback in his heyday.
Wow.
So
let's hope we never get to that point there.
For sure. But you can bet certainly teams are all going to be reviewing and potentially revising their policies on having an extra quarterback so they don't put themselves in a Bronco situation where they had to start a practice squad receiver at quarterback yesterday.
And look, I mean, where does Baltimore fall in on this whole fine? Look, they're obviously at some point they're the investigation is going to take place with the NFL and the NFLPA if it hadn't already started yet. There are, it's going to be more than a hand slap at this point. I think the starting point is what Tennessee was slapped with. several, back in week 4, week 5, or whenever the ruling came down on that. Do you how are draft picks going to be involved with this or what? I mean, this has obviously been a monumental and really kind of dwarfed even what Tennessee went through.
Yeah, I mean, probably in part because there were harder solutions to this than Tennessee, where you just kind of felt like you had bye weeks, you could move the game around. It was early in the season. But yeah, certainly you're going to be looking at massive fines, probably draft pick loss. I mean, you already had multiple teams lose draft picks this year with the Raiders. The Saints just lost a 7th rounder, I think, this weekend. So I think Baltimore is going to be paying a fairly heavy price for what happened this week.
And I wonder how much the actual holiday played into this as well too, and the Steelers side as well too. That was one of my biggest concerns that I think I put out on Twitter on Thanksgiving Day. Is I wonder how many positive tests start popping after this, because people get. Look, I mean, you see what happened with Denver. They got a little lax in their quarterback room. All 32 teams are lax in some area. Whether they want to admit it or not, just whether or not they get caught with their pants down or not, or their mask down, so to speak.
Right, which is what happened in Denver. Yeah, I mean, that's why for me, when the article I wrote yesterday is that I think a league official has to be assigned to every single team as just kind of a compliance officer and not rely and assume that teams and players will always do the right thing, because clearly that's not happening so far.
So we need hall monitors, right?
I know it sounds.
We need Gomer Pyles. Do you know who Gomer Pyle is? Do you ever watch the Andy Griffith Show?
Andy Griffith Show, yeah. I gotcha.
Citizens arrest. But try to get some pop culture in there. But
real pop culture with the Andy Griffith reference. Really get those kids listen to the podcast, Dave.
My wife will still watch an Andy Griffith Show anytime it comes on. She's been you don't even know what the Partridge Family is, do you?
Vaguely, but it was rip-off Brady Bunch, something like that, right?
Yeah, kind of with a musical, more of a musical aspect of it and all. Anyway, I evidently one of these channels was running a Partridge Family marathon or whatnot, and all I kept hearing upstairs is "Come on, world" is a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. Anyway, where were we?
Compliance officer, hall monitors. For
right. I mean, you would think, why don't they have them already?
Right. But certainly now.
The league could obviously save themselves a lot of money, maybe, and pay off those guys real quick if you put 2 of them and station them at the facility, or 4 of them in shifts or something like that, and kind of being hall monitor, if you will. Maybe that's what they're headed towards now. I don't know. We'll see.
I think that's one place to start. When they would travel with the team, they'd be on the team plane and make sure the guys are being compliant. I know that kind of sucks, but that's kind of the world we're living in right now.
And do you need a hall monitor? Do you need a casino situation where the pit boss watches the? You know what I'm saying? Where you have to have people watching the people. But anyway, what a mess.
It is. Do you want to revise your predictions for Tuesday's game again, assuming it gets played, considering the last time we made our picks, whenever that was on Wednesday, I guess it would have been, Monday. I don't even know when it was. We were expecting a game that was, with full rosters, and now that is not the case.
Yeah, and then let's give a shout out to our friend, before we do so, our friends at MyBookie here. Late fall college ball, the NBA bubble, and UFC Fight Island. You watched the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. Fight the other night, right?
On a very grainy stream, but yes, I did. And Tyson looked pretty good. Roy Jones, not so much. He looked like he just finished Thanksgiving dinner.
Roy Jones comes from my neck of the woods, Pensacola there, and him and Derek Smoke Gaynor, obviously fighters from that area that were big deals, when they fought. And I always was a huge Mike Tyson fan on top of it, and just being threatened. I played a couple softball tournaments with Roy Jones Jr. on our team as a ringer as well too. One of the guys at church knew a guy who knew a guy that got that set up. So a heck of a softball player he was. Him and Smoke Gaynor, obviously really really good athletes to come out of that area. I enjoyed the fight. I mean, I enjoyed Snoop narrating it.
Yeah, that was really good
too. I thought Snoop had some great lines, but I overall I didn't like it being a draw. I thought that was kind of BS. Tyson was the aggressive. I didn't like Roy Jones clutching as much as he did, but he took some pretty decent shots. Body blow. It looked like his ribs were hurting quite a bit in that. Anyway, I found myself entertained after all that. Late fall college ball, the NBA bubble, and UFC Fight Island. It's clear 2020 has been a year unlike any other, which is why you need a sports book with offers unlike any other. Get some skin in the game with MyBookie, where odds boost, lightning deals, and free bets await all season long. And with Turkey Day now just happening, there really is no better time to feast on some NFL action. Whether you're a first-time customer or have been playing with MyBookie for years, there is no shortage of value to be found in the thousands of game lines, unique prop bets, and contests that they offer every week. Sign up and get reloaded today. Find an edge, make your bet, and get paid. They also boast a fully fledged casino platform giving you access to all the classic table, slot, and card games you'd expect to find at your local spot. And the best part is, in MyBookie, the doors never close, so you can continue to build your bankroll even after the stadium lights have gone out. Make the right play today and sign up today at MyBookie. And when you do, please use promo code TERRIBLE to get your deposit matched halfway, all the way up to $1,000. The terms are simple. You put in $200. They'll match you with another $100 in your account. If you were already planning to bet this season, this is free betting money. It's winning season at MyBookie, so come join in on the fun and win some cash while you're at it. What'd you think about the... I was glued. I couldn't... I was... One byproduct of all that's happened this past week is I got to watch the Chiefs-Buccaneers game, and I'm guessing you did as well, too. So, what'd you think about that game?
Yeah, I mean, KC got out to a big lead, and then Tampa Bay kind of, was able to tighten things up and make it competitive in the second half. I mean, the Bucs have a pretty good defense, and obviously they weren't perfect, and they had a lot of issues with Tyreek Hill, who I seem to play against Tyreek Hill in every fantasy league I was playing this week. But, yeah, I mean, if you can find a way to not get Tyreek Hill one-on-one with your defense, if you can double him, then maybe you got a chance against the Chiefs. I mean,
even if they had to just go back and give them everything underneath at that halfway through that game, because what they were trying to do with a lot of some man coverage there. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, is there anybody in the NFL as good at him right now as at looking off safeties other than maybe a Tom Brady? I mean, look, Ben's done it a while. He's good at it. Aaron Rodgers is obviously good at it. We saw Aaron Rodgers do that, I think, last night, at least on one of his TDs as well too. But man, Mahomes is just, the whole package with him just makes him incredibly hard to defend. And then when you throw in a guy with the speed, I mean, you cannot cover Tyreek Hill, So how do you beat Mahomes? I mean, you can't play a ton of man. You just got to hope that your 4-man pressure gets to the quarterback, period.
Yeah, I think the goal is you rush forward, you play zone, and you just go for the turnover. You got to steal a possession, 1 or 2, and then hope your offense is able to capitalize, and then win situational football, third down, red zone, get a turnover or 2, which is tough against Mahomes, who's only thrown 2 picks this year, both against the Raiders. But I think the goal has to be, you got to find a way to take the football away.
I mean, he's the best quarterback in the NFL, hands down, right? I mean,
yeah, by far.
That's Captain Obvious. I mean, who's second?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really have a list. Russell Wilson's played, not as well as of late, but I've always been impressed by Russell Wilson.
We talked about Watson the other day. Boy, he's playing some decent football right now.
Really high up there. Definitely top 5, maybe even top 3 for me. So, but Mahomes is clearly at number 1.
Right. Just going to be it's hard to imagine them losing another game moving forward through the rest of the season. I mean, the Raiders obviously got them once there, but I mean, do we see? I think that was one of their toughest games remaining here. Let me pull up their schedule real quick here.
Yeah, it's a team that's lost now 3 games over the last 2 seasons. I mean, it's just, the rushing attack's not great, and their defense has some, is a little suspect. But when you have Mahomes, you have the weapons that he's throwing to Kelsey, even Hardman, who, hasn't been involved a lot, but has a lot of speed. Obviously Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's just a lot to deal with.
They get Denver next. I mean, that's a mere speed bump, right? The Dolphins, people are kind of, I think, kind of Romo or people are kind of wondering maybe if people have caught on to Tua already at this point. with the Dolphins. The Saints, I suppose, would be an interesting test for at least from maybe a scoring aspect, especially if they get Breeze back in time for that game. The Falcons probably not going to be much of a challenge in the Chargers. So I mean, we're realistically looking at a Chiefs team here, probably at worst going 14-2, right?
Right. Yeah. So the Steelers are going to have to be. I don't know what happens in tiebreakers, but for them to not worry about tiebreakers, I mean, one loss is probably the minimum you can deal with.
Right. I mean, barring the Chiefs slipping up,
Right.
at least once. So we'll see. All right. Thoughts on this game now from where we stand at Monday at almost 11 a.m. So things there's a mark in the sand for everybody to know where we're at with this thing. Right now, the Steelers, according to my bookie, are 10-point home favorites. Where do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, well, when rosters were fully competitive, I had Pittsburgh winning 23-20 on a Boz 40-something yard field goal to win it. I've now revised it. I mean, the Ravens' defense still is relatively intact, again, especially that secondary. Their off-ball linebackers, Patrick Queen, most notably. So I don't know if the Steelers' offense will change a whole lot, and the weather conditions may tamp down the number of points that can be scored here. Obviously, Baltimore's offense is now a wreck, so I now have Pittsburgh winning this one from 23-20 to 27-13 over Baltimore.
Okay, I have this still with Baltimore covering because I think that's what's going to happen in this one. The snow element and all, I think, is going to add an interesting dynamic. I think that helps the Ravens more than it does the Steelers here. I will go 23-16, a 7-point game with the Steelers coming out on top of this. I think it's going to be tough for the Ravens to get much more than field goals in this game, but all it takes is one turnover in short area, right? And there they go. So I have the Steelers winning this by 7 points.
What was your initial prediction?
I had the Ravens covering. I don't know if it's too much different. So I don't have.
Yeah, it seems pretty similar.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty similar from the initial prediction. So I have it a little bit more different. Now again, Baltimore, they haven't practiced. There's so many young guys. Their offensive line. I don't know who their center is going to be. I don't know I know who their long snapper is going to be, but he's going to be brand new. I mean, there's just so many things that are working against Baltimore, obviously, right now. And I mean, Pittsburgh should. Emphasis on should handle this one.
I mean, you'd love to see a 50 burger here.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, it would give. I think Steelers fans would thoroughly enjoy giving the Ravens a 50 burger after all that's transpired this week, right? And in the process, getting some guys out of the game early and having this kind of half mini bye, if you will, this past week on top of it. We'll wish for it. They obviously have the better personnel, top to bottom. I mean, this game shouldn't be close.
Mm-hmm. Right, but who knows? Wild week.
Right. And what is it? Here's a little bit update for everybody as well too, as far as playoff scenarios go. With who are the Las Vegas Raiders right now?
Inconsistent. All heck.
I mean, did you see that coming at the hands of the Falcons there? And maybe they have found their new head coach there in the interim aspect of it. But the Raiders lost. That was pretty big from a playoff position standpoint. What else happened around the league that was kind of huge?
Well, in terms of Miami would have had to lose that game to the Jets for Pittsburgh
tie
to clinch or tie, and they beat the Jets pretty handily. So Pittsburgh cannot clinch a playoff spot even with a win this week, correct?
That is correct. The Steelers, there's no clinching scenario right now on Tuesday for the Steelers. At best, I think you come out of that with the notion that the Ravens cannot win the division.
Right.
The Browns look pretty suspect at times. The Browns tried their best to give the game away to the Jaguars. They just didn't want it. The Titans are the Titans still one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC side?
I mean, they're up there for sure. A.J. Brown's a freak, and Derrick Henry went off on the Colts, and the Colts were missing so many pieces defensively, including DeForest Buckner, so they were at 100%, and that's one reason why Tennessee put 45 on it. But yeah, I mean, they're, one of the better teams in the AFC.
When you get past the Steelers and the Chiefs at this point, who are the teams that you say to yourself, you know what, this is one of maybe two? I mean, the Colts losing, the Colts, we talked about the Colts defense, and boy, the Titans hung 45 on them, Of course, Derrick Henry running like a thoroughbred as usual. I mean, he's not going to be able to keep that up, that amount of work, but we'll see. But who are like one of maybe two teams outside of the Steelers and the Chiefs that you think, okay, maybe this team can end up in the Super Bowl?
I mean, I think obviously those are the top two, the Steelers and the Chiefs. I think those are where majority of people would go towards. Does Buffalo have a good enough defense and enough consistent enough team to do it? Probably not there quite yet. Still Tennessee, I think, would probably be most people's third choice. I still think Baltimore has a chance to right the ship. Obviously, this week may not be the week to do that, but I'm never going to count out the Ravens. And the Colts do have a good defense, although I don't think really the Colts have the Super Bowl aspirations that maybe their fans think they do.
And if the Ravens lose this week, they will have 5 losses. They would, I mean, you'd have to think that they would only have room for, 2 more losses at most? I mean, they could still get in. They'll probably still get in with a 10-6 record, right? It's hard to imagine them not getting in at 10-6.
Yeah, especially with the 7th at least seed this year. I don't know the rest of the schedule. But, I mean, obviously, it's Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and then it's kind of everyone else in some other second tier.
All right, and what's your thoughts on boy, Baker just missed some throws, didn't he? Mayfield with the Browns?
He had the worst miss I've ever seen yesterday, but he did actually have some good throws in that game later on, including one to Landry. And so, I mean, the Browns not their most comfortable way, but Nick Chubb's back and healthy, and their offense is in a decent place overall around the league overall. You had a lot of firings. You had Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn getting fired in Detroit. Dave Caldwell, the Jags GM, getting fired in Jacksonville. No one better interview Brandon Hunt in Pittsburgh for those jobs.
You would think, why wouldn't they? I mean, geez. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the big thing that work against him is a lack of experience. And if teams want to find someone with experience, then he wouldn't be their guy. We'll see. The Chargers continue to charge their things up. Anthony Lynn might be the next coach to go. Obviously, Adam Gase is going to be gone after this year. The Bengals losing by 2 points to the Giants with Brandon Allen starting a quarterback for Cincinnati. So those are kind of the storylines of the week.
Let's see. What else was I going to? Obviously, Eric Bieniemy. If you're him, what is the most? It's got to be Houston, right? It's got to be
the most attractive.
Attractive because Bieniemy is going to be on the short list of several teams here. Matthew Stafford at the end of his career, there's been rumblings that this might be it for him in Detroit this year. Anyway, we'll see. But you would have to think Houston would be the premier spot for him, right?
I would think so, because obviously having Deshaun Watson now, there's an issue with draft capital and undoing the mess that. That's stupid. ESPN loves to just autoplay videos sometimes. There's the mess of, undoing all the things Bill O'Brien did in the loss of draft picks and stuff like that. But yeah, Houston's probably the top spot to go to.
And what would be the, I think the defensive coordinator there in San Francisco would be a good fit going back home to Detroit.
Yeah.
Robert
I'm sure.
Salas, is it?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his last name exactly, but yeah, I've seen his name floated quite a bit. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know what the landscape's going to look like in terms of the top coaches on the market. I know Bieniemy is going to be one of them, and hopefully this will be the year he gets a head coaching job. He certainly deserves it. So we'll see.
All right, what else do we have left on to talk about here?
I think that was about it. Barring any sort of breaking news here with Pittsburgh, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, JJ from Lexington back in the email box. I have a winner for your shirt. The Terrible Podcast, a fungible podcast full of minutia. We didn't have much minutia today, did we? Well, I guess we did. All the moves that the Steelers have made. Thanks for that, JJ. We're still kind of working on getting that together there. Let's see here. Here's a good one from Sean Cuthbertson. Hello, David Knox. I heard about this review of an Anthony McFarland run on a fantasy football podcast. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this breakdown by Matt Waldman. Matt Waldman obviously does good work for football guys, right?
Very good.
Yeah, good, and he specializes in like skill position players and wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, those kind of things. Did you see it on him breaking down one of the runs that McFarland had in that most recent game?
I don't believe so, no.
All right. Well, Sean, you're flying blind here, but I actually did see it here. He's breaking down one of the runs where against the Jaguars, I think, where McFarland probably should have done a better job of reading the blocks and setting them up and cut back the other way. Anyway, all he did was break down one run in this, and I get the overall sense of what Matt Waldron was going at here. And Sean, in so many words, he says, I understand it's only one play, but I'm wondering if you saw anything like this in McFarland tape, and have you reviewed college or pro? Have you noticed limitations with his instincts or ability to read and the hole? What are the odds he can learn to be more patient, to hit the correct hole more often? Yada yada. I'm also I've heard him described as too much of an upright runner, which could lead to him taking more hits. Here's my thought, Sean, and I watched a lot of them, and I think Alex watched a lot of them too after the fact. Obviously, we didn't do a lot of much of any work on Anthony McFarland pre-draft. In fact, I think we had Daniel Valente had a great kind of breakdown. It really was a great scouting report on Anthony McFarland as a starting point there after he was drafted by the Steelers. I've watched enough of him, though, to understand why he was drafted where he was drafted. And look, he had a lot of success outside the tackle, but as Alex and I think have talked about in the past, he did show the ability to run inside. Does that mean he was great at running inside? There's a whole competitive aspect on kind of they mostly blocked a lot of man blocking schemes, I think, at Maryland, though, right? Do you remember?
I think it was a mix. I don't remember how the breakdown between man and zone. He showed vision. I would just say this is, we're getting spoiled by the Steelers rookie class, and McFarland was an underclassman coming out. So he's behind the curve, behind some of these seniors like Chase Claypool or Alex Highsmith or Kevin Dotson. So his progression might be slower because he's a younger guy. He's like, 21, 22 years old?
Yeah. Sean, look, my first thought when reading this, and look, I think Matt Waldman does phenomenal work, but I don't know if he's got a kind of a pre-narrative that he's trying to confirm here. It's kind of what it feels like with this 5-minute video here is almost like I told you so based on one play. I don't know, because I haven't seen any of the previous stuff he might have done on him. I will remind everybody, though, it is one play, all right, with him, and overall, McFarland hasn't had many touches. I mean, we're dealing with such a small sample size with him. Now, at any point when going over his film, his Maryland film, did I come away and think, oh man, what a steal! This is the next who's the kid in New Orleans?
Alvin Kamara.
Right, is this the next Alvin Kamara? Boy, what? No, I haven't. At no point have I thought that. I did come away from McFarland's college tape of understanding why, after all the talk that me and Alex had, this team does not need to draft a running back. Why he was the one, and why there was the kind of the potential fit there. But all that said, I mean, I don't think we can draw any hard conclusions on Anthony McFarland based on just the limited amount of touches he's had so far.
Right, of course not. I mean, he's had, 20 touches so far, so we're not going to draw any conclusions, really. Maybe by next year, his sophomore season, we'll start getting a feel for who this guy may be and who he may not be.
Right. I just think it's way early to kind of be hyped or worried about a guy like him. Let's see here. I don't know if we got too many more in here. Let's see. You got anything that you're working on there?
Nope. I don't know what's going to write about for the rest of the day. We'll just keep an eye on, obviously roster moves, elevations, any potential more positive tests coming out, and
Bryce has got something in here. As crazy as the question may seem, is Chuks Okorafor currently the best right tackle in the AFC North?
I'd have to look at his competition. Currently, obviously they shifted Brown over. If when he was at his traditional right tackle spot, he's the best.
Jack Conklin's playing right tackle with Cleveland, right?
Right, unless he's hurt, I don't know for sure. And then Cincinnati, Bobby Hart, whoever they have over there. So probably, unless you're really getting super technical and saying like currently right now because Brown's on the left side, and I don't know what's going on with Conklin right now. But when guys are healthy, he's like their best.
When you watch the tape of the Ravens, which of these three do you believe is most to blame for their passing game woes and why? Greg Roman, Lamar Jackson, or the wide receivers? I think the answer to that's yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to pin it all on one guy. There's been question marks about Roman's offense, and is it too predictable and things like that. But you can blame all those guys, I'm sure.
I think it's more. I think it's a lot of everything there. They need to figure out a way to use Brown more. They need to try to morph more into the Kansas City offense as they possibly can. That means possibly even more motions and stuff like that. And if everybody gets a chance, they really should go watch that Tony Romo interview with Bill Simmons that I referenced at the top of the show there, and how motions and how Tom Brady not using maybe enough motions in Tampa Bay at the snap. Tom Brady likes to use a lot of motions pre-snap to identify things. And Tony Romo does such a great job at the beginning of this podcast talking about the use of pre-snap motion and how more teams probably need to use it with these younger quarterbacks, for the sheer fact that they got to get these defenses, how defenses have the firmer advantage against these younger quarterbacks of being able to communicate pre-snap if they're not having to move on the fly with the pre-snap motion. And I think even when you circle us back to the Steelers again, and we'll kind of leave it at this, is I think one of the biggest things that maybe you can be critical about with the Steelers right now is, they have had the uptick of the pre-snap motions and motions at the snap of the football early in the season. We've talked about how they've kind of gone away from that the last couple games there. I think maybe you need to get that number going back the other direction more. And I think too, him talking about spreading out, I think that's why you've seen Roethlisberger have a lot of the success that has had this year, is because the ability to spread opposing defenses out, and how they're most likely not going to blitz. What you see is more what you're going to get when you throw out that 0-1 out there and you force the other team to line up and kind of commit with their defensive personnel out there. So I think there's several layers to that. And overall, I got to admit, going back to Lamar Jackson, I don't think he's been so much a read or react guy, trusting what he sees. I think, and I think with defenses being able to move their safeties around more, and I think the more that you do that, and obviously with the injuries, Tony Romo points to the injuries that they've had dating back to the Steelers game with Stanley going down, and now all this mess with the COVID and all like that. He also pointed to them not having Marshall Yanda anymore, which obviously was an off-season retirement. He says that you take away that extra half second that Lamar Jackson used to have to hold the football, and now he doesn't have that anymore. His read reaction time is going to have to increase, and he just doesn't think that he's overcome that obstacle very good as well too. So I think there's a lot of layers. And look, it's built around a running game. If they're not able to run the football successfully, it takes away a lot of what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Takes away almost everything that they want to do for sure. And then just for Tuesday's game, they're missing two really underrated pieces in Patrick Ricard, their fullback, and tight end Nick Boyle has been out a couple weeks now, lost for the season due to injury. And those are really critical role players for their run game and great cut blockers, and a big reason why their run game has been successful. So, to not have those guys, in addition to all their offensive line issues, in addition to not having their running backs in Jackson, major losses across the board.
Yeah, look, I mean, you talk about Mark Andrews. I mean, that guy's security blanket. I mean, plain and simple. And then not having recent Steeler killer Willie Snead there obviously hurts that offense tremendously. One thing that Brad pulled up this week that caught my eye in some of the stats, they don't have a down the field pass interference call, I don't think, this year.
Really?
With Lamar Jackson under center.
That's interesting.
How amazing that's a damn offense that used to live off of the pass interference. Now it's the Steelers that are getting all the pass interference calls down the field there. So I found that an interesting stat there. All right, do we have any late breaking news? Hell, it's been the whole world's probably changed in the hour and 15 minutes that we've been on this.
Yeah, I've been refreshing, not seeing anything updated since Shefty's report this morning when we started the show about the Ravens, the league canceling Baltimore's practice on Monday. So I guess we'll get more information later today. I assume by like 4 o'clock today that they're going to make a decision on whether or not to play in this thing once I guess the Ravens get back more results and the Steelers do as well. But I'm guessing they're going to play tomorrow's game. But
yeah, I'm not going to. I'm out of the guessing business of my 0.000. I thought this game would have been played Thursday night for sure, and here we are. Obviously, look, Tuesday's kind of the cutoff anyway. You would think that is going to happen, but I use that loosely at this point. I'm no longer in the business of predicting, at least in the COVID environment, whether or not some of these games are gonna go off or not. Yeah, I'm just gonna wait, report it, and analyze it, and move along there. And I think that's the best that you can do in this situation, right?
Yeah, fair enough. So we will be back on Wednesday to hopefully talk about the Steelers-Ravens game and get you pretty quickly ready for the Sunday game against Washington football team as well.
All right, and what are we still doing what we do on Monday nights tonight?
Yeah, we'll do the live stream on YouTube. Just follow us, Alex Kozora. We'll be on from 7 to 8 p.m. tonight, answering, I'm sure, all you guys' questions about what's going to happen for tomorrow's presumed game.
All right, an hour and 11 minutes. People are going to think that I'm sick or something worse than what I am. But, all right, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button upright navigational bar. Also, if you would like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, it's been very popular for quite a while now. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button upright navigational bar for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. And as Alex said, we will be back later on this evening, 7 Eastern time with the YouTube live stream, answering all of your questions you might have. Those have been very popular as well. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.